Hey everybody, Angie here, and welcome to 846. And I have an incredible guest for today. I mean, like incredible. Okay, I'm talking like really, really incredible. And I think I'm really fortunate. I feel like I'm a magnet for really great clients. With 846, I have very few like bad clients or difficult clients, but this particular gentleman, I don't know, like he has completely stolen my heart away, and I think he's going to steal your heart away too, because not just because of who he is, although that's part of it, it's because of what he's experienced and what he's doing with what he's experienced. So I'm not going to go on and on and on introducing him to you. Let me just have you welcome with me, Demone Dickerson. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Angie. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And the reason Demone is here, of course, is because he is an author. He is the author of a brand new book called Debt Paid But Unforgiven: the lifetime debt of a felony conviction. And I will tell you, Demone, as much as I thought I knew about this topic when you first signed on as a client of 846, you have opened my eyes to what the reality is of what happens to a person who has had a conviction and now they're released. And then what does their life look like? I just didn't get it. And it seems so simple now that I know, now that you've educated me, and hopefully all of America. But for some reason, we just don't get it. So that's probably where we want to go. But first, I just want you to tell the folks a little bit about yourself, and in particular, why you decided to write this book.
Definitely. First, before I get into that, Angie, I just really want to thank you and 846 Publishing for holding my hand and walking with me and making me feel safe in a place that I'm vulnerable. And I felt like I could actually tell my story because you encouraged me every step of the way, and you made me believe that I had something to share with the world. And so before I could talk about me, I wouldn't be here without your unwavering support. So kudos to you and to anyone who's looking for someone who can help them see a project through from start to finish. Then 846 Publishing is a great place to start. With that being said, yes, I'm Demone Dickerson, just a lifelong learner. And when I say that, my lessons have come in the classroom and they've also come in life. And as I realized in life that I was cheating myself, and I had allowed myself to be a lesser version than who I was created to be. And I took a look back and I reflected on some of the things that I had gone through and the places where I found myself in life that were unpleasant. And I had to do a real assessment. And I really did. You asked me a question, and I'm rediscovering who I really am, because I got lost in the wilderness. And because of that, I identified with people, places, and things that did not really benefit who I really was. And so I lost myself and I lost my identity. But who I truly am is a God-fearing man who loves people and who loves to see people win, who wants to be positive at every step of the way, who wants to make good decisions, who wants to be the greatest father, the greatest husband, the greatest child, the greatest friend, the greatest sibling in the world. And with that being said, the mistakes and the bad decisions has actually helped me to be better in all the roles that I play in life. So I'm just this guy on a journey in life, and found out that life is truly a journey. And I've discovered and rediscovered myself so many times. And now at the ripe age of 49, I think I'm finally identifying with who I really am.
Well, I'll tell you one thing you are, and that is an amazing author, because this book reached the Amazon new released bestseller, and we are so happy. It was #1 in the, I believe it was like African American memoirs, and of course it made the new release bestseller. I think it was #3 in books about this particular topic. And so that's really a great testament to who you are. You know, when I first read the book, when you first sent it in, I was absolutely blown away. The book is very conversational, but it's very, very detailed in the sense that it provides you with a strong perspective of the history of, like, where we are in America and how we handle people who have felony convictions, and even how other countries handle people who have felony convictions, and how they get so much better results than we do. Because our system is so broken. And so, this is a spoiler alert. So Demone does have a felony in his history. And as a result of going through that, learned some things about what happens when you come out of prison. So what I want to ask you about first is this idea of debt paid. You were very clear when you came to me that that's the title you wanted. And can you just explain to everyone, what does that really mean, debt paid?
Definitely. So from my perspective, I wanted something that we all can relate to that has nothing to do with a criminal background. And that is, in this society, we create debt. That's what we do. We create debt. And what happens with debt is we create a debt, and then with that debt, we have to pay it back in order to maintain good credit. Now, we don't have to pay it back, but we pay back what we borrow, whether that be on a credit card, whether that's on a home loan, a house loan, anything that requires you to, pay above what you have in your bank account. And so with that thought in mind, I looked at the felony convictions and those of us who have gone through that process. And what we get is a sentence. So in the court process, there's a sentencing phase. And with that sentencing phase, they tell you how much time you are required to do. Because, it's been said in society that when you commit a crime, that, you owe a debt. And that is a debt because you committed that crime against society. Then you have a debt to society to pay back for what that crime was. And so in the process of doing that, you get your time, you get your amount of probation, supervised release, and all those things. And so when I looked at debt paid, I looked at the fact that these debts have been paid back. When people are released from prison and they come home, that's not the end of the debt. But what happens is in the system, there's going to be either probation or parole. That is a time frame that you will know about. You'll sign off on it, and you're given that amount of time. And you're given stipulations to adhere to in order to successfully complete the terms of release. And so you serve your time, and then you successfully complete your terms of release. And with that being done, you have paid back your debt because that was all you were given. But what tends to happen is once that time has been served and in those you successfully completed those terms, there's still a level of unforgiveness that remains. There's a level that says, well, since you've been through this, we're going to hold it against you for the remainder of your life. But we didn't receive a life sentence. And so I found it unfair that I would still be serving a sentence that I've already completed. And that though there are many opportunities available, there are limited opportunities for people who have paid their debt back to society because they made bad decisions. Some of them were mistakes. Some of them were old. Some of them were malicious. Not everybody's put in the same boat. But if I pay my debt back, then fairly assess me based on the crime that I committed and how I paid my debt back. And so that's the gist of the mindset that I had when I came up with that title.
Yeah, one of the chapters I love in your book so much talks about applications, talks about how this felony conviction, as you have so beautifully stated, you were told what the punishment was for your conviction. It's all laid out, right, in your sentencing. And then you do that, and now it's supposed to be over. But it's not over, because as soon as you leave, you have to get a job. You have to get an apartment. You have to, you want to maybe volunteer for an organization or, do God knows what else, maybe even get some education. Every single one of those steps requires you to disclose this mark in your past. Talk to us a little bit about what is that like? Like, how did you? Because you're successful today. And if you walked into my office today and you were like, I want to work with 846 Publishing, I'd be like, yeah, hire him. You're the whole package. But for so many people, that continues to be a stopping point. And it keeps them from taking the next step forward. How does that work, and how do you get past it?
Truth be told, I don't know if we ever get past it. We operate with it. It's one of those things, and I will sometimes do biblical references, and I think about the Apostle Paul and the thorn in the flesh. God's grace is sufficient. And I found that out because I took so many no's, and I built, and I wrote about this in the book, where I built this resiliency. And I had to play mind games with myself because I realized that I may not get a yes, but at least I'll try. So what had happened was I had decided, why try? Why expose myself? Why go in here dressed the best way I could be, resume in hand, everything intact, only to leave here stripped of dignity? Because I had to tell you everything about me, and come to find out you're probably going to tell me no anyway. So you begin to hit this hurdle, this roadblock. But it depends on the people that you have in your life and what they know about you. And I had a I have a great support system. Great support system who never let me wallow too much in my misery. I write about the pity part, and I'm not inviting anybody that watches this or listens to me. I'm not inviting you to feel sorry for me, because as Angie just stated, I am a blessed man. But this was such a journey for me, and I had so many setbacks. I've cried so many nights. I have so many scars, not on what the system did to me, but what I did to myself. And so I need to be fair when I say I'm not blaming the system. I blame me. But what I do say is, once I've completed what you asked me to do, then I would need a fair system to allow me to feel myself to be redeemed. Because the sad part about it is you wake up every day never feeling like it's a new day. When you know that imagine waking up every day and it never feels like it's new. That's where hopelessness resides. And you have people who feel like, what's the need of trying, because today is going to be just like yesterday. And so many people get stuck in yesterday and yesteryear because of the brick walls that we hit based on the mindsets of the people who make laws. And so what happened was I thought about who I was prior to the felony. And for me, I was a great basketball player. When I say great, I'm not talking about NBA great, but on my level, I was good at the game. And I was always the smallest player on the team, but I was the point guard. And I was the decision maker. And I played with older guys, even after school. I played with my family and the older guys who really knew how to play, who trusted me to make decisions. And the one thing that I was always aware of is I was going to be the smallest man on the court. And I had to make a decision on whether that was going to allow me to turn my back and run the other way, or hide behind somebody, or figure out a mechanism that I could utilize that would make up for my deficit. And so I learned how to shoot the ball real high. And I learned how to maneuver between the defense so that I wasn't always trying to overcome my giant. So what I'm saying is I had to be strategic in my thinking. How do I go in here now? And even though I know what they're going to ask me and I pretty much know their answer, how do I make that still a benefit for me when I leave out of here? And what I did was I learned how to interview. I learned how to interview. I just learned how to interview. And so now I try to teach people how to interview. People who don't have felonies are so afraid of the interview process. So it's just that you build yourself up, you know it's coming, you prepare for it, but you don't automatically let that defeat you. So it's hard to answer that question because so many people you would never know the feeling of wondering if that question is on an application until you have a felony on your record. And it's one of the that has bowed down many, many men, powerful men who feel like they're the strongest man in their arena. But when they see, should I or should I not check that box, that's a different feeling. And I cannot explain it.
That's amazing. You talk about learning how to interview as one of the skills, but I'll tell you guys, this book is chock full of Demone's skills. All of these, the skill set he built both in prison and outside of prison, with personal development. And at the end of every chapter, he gives you one of those skills. And then at the end of the book, there's like a whole comprehensive list of skills, mindsets, attitudes, habits, philosophies that you can employ if you have had a felony conviction in your past, you can employ those skills today to sort of, correct for the fact that our system is such a mess and doesn't really forgive a debt once the debt has been repaid. So I encourage you to definitely get the book. Thinking about some of those amazing skills that you talk about, one of the things that you talk a lot about is like doing that inner work. And I remember you talking about working with some of the other guys in the prison and, just talking to them. And then at one point you actually had a position in the prison as a prisoner yourself. You were teaching other people. What are some of the nuggets that you were able to share with them? I know you were teaching like a specific class in prison. You'll have to remind me what that was, but you were teaching a specific class. But in the course of teaching that class, you got to share some nuggets and some wisdoms with some of those guys. Would you share one of those with us?
Definitely. Where the class was actually GED, adult basic education.
Okay.
And as we talk about, I made bad decisions, not just when I was older, but I made decisions early on that closed the door on my ability to be able to go in and teach and coach. I love the game so much, and I love sharing knowledge so much that I really wanted to make that part of my life journey. But I had to go a non-conventional route with that. So inside of the walls, even though, I was actually at a prison camp, so there's no bars. There, it was just a big dorm, and we moved freely. We were just doing time. So that's the one they call club fed, if it's such a thing. I don't agree with that, but anyway, that classroom, it was something about finally, and it's so. When I say, Angie, that it was something that I could not have written had I not gone through it, is that, wow, there was a sense of freedom when I became the teacher. When I became the instructor, I was no longer doing time. Every day that I went into that classroom, there was something unlocked in me that I wanted to see lights come on in people's head. I wanted to see, oh, I get it. Oh, I want to try now, because I saw heads down. I saw defeated men who felt like, I don't want to be in here. And what I said was, why go home empty-handed when you can go home with a GED? Not only that, but a diploma in your hand, because you have someone here now who not only knows this stuff, but I'm willing to share it with you. And so I just became transparent about how I got there and why, but while I'm here and while you're here and we've met up at this place at the same time, let's make our time worthwhile.
Yeah.
And so we hit the books, and it wasn't so many things that needed to be taught. It was just sometimes it was a simple formula. It was just a simple way of understanding a verb, understanding where to put a comma. It was nothing super major. It's just having the joy of doing it, that someone didn't feel like they were less than me because they needed my help. And so because I brought the right spirit, and I wrote about this in the book, is when there's an opportunity, no matter where you are, you treat it like it's an opportunity. And so I operated with the spirit of excellence. That's not perfection. That means I'm going to do my best no matter what, because even though this classroom is inside of a correctional institution, it's still a classroom. Someone is still trying to get something out of this. And so because I understand that, and because I was operating from that deficit of I've never done this before, and now that I have it, no matter who else knows, God is watching me. And what I do with little is how he determines if he can trust me with much and much more. And what we've done to the least of these, according to his word, he's watching. And so I'm looking at it like I'm one of the least of these, but I'm allowed an opportunity to stand and utilize a gift that God put in me. And so I operated with it as if it was a gift, and we got some results. And there were, I think it was 6. Sometimes I want to go to 4, but between 4 and 6 guys got that GED. They gave us a party. They gave us food. They allowed us to watch a movie in the conference room, because we accomplished something that not only made those guys feel well, but it also made the prison look good, because some guys actually came to class and learned something.
Wow, that's amazing. Woo, that's amazing. That's just inspirational. That gives me the feels. All right, so here's the big question about prison in general that I think most people are asking themselves or have asked themselves, and it's the question of recidivism.
Yes.
You experienced this. I hope I'm not, this is another spoiler alert, but you experienced this because your first brush with the law was when you were younger.
Yes.
And then you had a second brush with the law, a couple of years after that, a few years after that. Something was different between the first time and the second time. And I think you put your finger on it in the book really, really well, but share with us just a snippet of that. Like, what was different that second time so that you would never, ever, ever go back again?
And I did write about it. And so what I said about the first time was I pled guilty. The second time I accepted responsibility. Two different things. When I pled guilty, and I'm like, as we talked about, I'm fully transparent here. So when I pled guilty, I really did not feel like I was guilty. I don't want to sound self-righteous. That's just my mindset. I felt like, based on my life circumstances, I did a little hustling, tried to get through so that I could make my life situation better and keep my mom from having to do certain things for me. It wasn't right. It wasn't condoned in my household. That was my mindset at the time. And I dealt with somebody who I trusted, and how it went down, it just did not sit right with me. And so because of how it went down and how I was looking at my life and how all those things went, yeah, I plead guilty. But in my heart, y'all don't know my story. Y'all don't really know. Y'all, it wasn't that much. Just those things that we tell ourselves, which I also write about in the book, is if your solution has bad consequences and negative consequences, it's not a solution. And so I was allowing something that could get me in trouble to be my solution based on my limited understanding. If we go way back to the beginning of the book, my father died when I was 4 years old. And so it affected me more than anyone in this world ever knew. When I say anyone, I mean anyone, because I lived with it day in and day out with so many questions and so many thoughts and so much, as we call it in the counseling, we're unfinished business that I wish I knew. Maybe if I knew this, then I would feel better. Maybe if this was that, then I could move on. But, it took a while, and it took, finding myself in that pig pen situation to get out of that. So with that first one, I don't even think I did enough time. I did weekend time. So I did weekend time. So I never really sat down with myself to see the pathway that I was headed on, because I had these little tendencies that I thought I was slick. I thought I could get by. I thought I knew better than most people. So I'm operating as a child, but thinking that I'm far ahead of where I am. And right. My mom always told me this, and she put it in her own way. She had plenty of them, but she tell me, what's done in the dark, son, it's going to come to light. Like when you go out here and you do these things, I might not see you, but if you go contrary to what I taught you, it's going to come back on you. And she said, but it's going to hurt me, because it's going to look like I haven't taught you anything. And so I just operated, and then I felt, and here's what's real about pleading guilty. I felt guilt on me. So it was like, now I don't know who I am. I don't know how I feel, because I've pled to something and I've admitted to something, and now that spirit rides with me. And as a result of that, I never really was far beyond making bad decisions, but I made better choices and I got to a better place in life. But at some point, that felony would keep coming up. So I'm like, I'm doing better, I'm making better decisions, but I keep dealing with this felony. So eventually I got in trouble again. And that's when I realized, man, I got to accept responsibility. Here we are again. Here I am again. How in the heavens did I end up here? And so I took a real deep. I did heart surgery, and I had to take out that old one and put in a new one. And I had to see myself for that person that I really was. And that's somebody who has allowed myself to try to cut corners, has allowed myself to build a mindset based on hurt and pain, opposed to the promises that life offers. And so I saw it for what it was. I accepted the responsibility, and now I'm walking in that place. I'm walking in that person where I can accept my responsibility. Therefore, I won't let you hold it against me no more. Therefore, I won't let the world tell me what I cannot be. Because what I found out in that is, what's the purpose? Why do we incarcerate people? Is it truly to rehab them? And so that's my question. So who would be mad at me for not settling to be just another felon? That's not the American way. We're not built on that. We're built on the comeback story.
Right.
That's the spirit of America. What can you come back from? And so I'm standing here today and I'm asking those who are willing to listen, if people have put in the work to come back from incarceration and crime and all of those things, not everybody, but those who have put in the work, find it in your heart, find it in your laws to allow them another chance. We all need to feel like we can redeem ourselves.
Yes. That to me is the essence of this book. If I had to summarize it, that's how I would summarize it. This is an opportunity for redemption for people who want to move forward with their life. They want to put the past behind them. We all want to put the past behind us. So many of us, the only reason we weren't in prison is because we were lucky. We just didn't get caught. We did some stuff when we were younger, and some of us did some stuff when we were older. And so everybody wants redemption. But even if you haven't done anything necessarily illegal, we all, you could have had a bad educational experience. You could have had a bad childhood. You could have had a bad marriage or been through a traumatic situation, a bad accident or a major illness. When you get past that thing, you want to be past it. You want to put that behind you and move forward with your life. And if you have a felony conviction, our system, our culture doesn't permit that. It just doesn't. And so we want to get this book, first of all, in the hands of every person who has had a felony conviction or who has a loved one who has had a felony conviction. They need to read this book. You are going to be so empowered when you get done with this book and feel like you have a path moving forward. But then we want to start getting this book in the hands of our elected officials on every level, from, mayors and governors to, senators and, House of Representatives. And perhaps one day, once we figure out who the president's going to be, fingers crossed, we can get the president to read the book. But the point of this is to make sure that we do what's necessary on a grassroots level, but also make sure that our people who are making laws for our country understand that our prison complex it's a travesty, and it's wasting good lives. I mean, you think about someone like Demone. Imagine this life not being free to do what he does in the world today. But there are so many voices that are silenced because they have the weight of that felony conviction kind of resting on their shoulders. So personally, I thank you, because you didn't have to be vulnerable like this and put your whole story in a book for the rest of us to read. But I will say one thing, Demone, and I'll give you the last word. In the very end of the book, there are some action steps for governments, for people who are political activists or community organizers, for you all to sit down and have these conversations. There are conversation starters in there. There are all kinds of, prompts and helps to get the conversation going so that we start moving toward a more just society, and a society where forgiveness is a real thing. Once a person has paid their debt, as a society, we can say, you're forgiven. Yeah. So, Demone, I will give you the last word, because I love this book so much. I could go, it's like I wrote it. I can go on and on and on about it. So what's next for you? What are you looking forward to? And what are your thoughts about the success the book has had so far?
Oh, those are power pack questions. What's next for me? The door is wide open. The fact that I put my face on this book to say that I have a felony represents healing, because once upon a time, this was the most embarrassing and the most hurtful thing about my life. So I chose that cover because I wanted to prove to myself that I believed that my debt had been paid. So now I just want to go on shows like yours, and anyone who would have me to, because not everybody's going to agree with everything I say. That's not what it's about. It's what you just said. Let's talk about it. Let's educate each other about what can be better, because I do understand this. There's no perfect society. We wrote about Israel and New Zealand and Canada and other places. Not that they're perfect, but they have some things that we could take from what they're doing good and add to our system. So because there's no perfect society, there's no perfect system, but there is progression. So we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for progression in our criminal justice system. We're looking to humanize people and stop treating people like the box that they check. We have to realize that maybe one day you could have done your best job teaching, your best job raising your child, your best job cultivating all of your relationships. But God forbid somebody makes a choice that causes them to be behind bars, and you've never dealt with that, but you've had a cold heart towards somebody else. And so what we're trying to do is put ourselves, it's empathy. Let's put ourselves in other people's shoes. And so what all I'm trying to do is to humanize people and stop looking at them as, oh, you're just another felon. So we're just talking about this thing. So what's next for me is to continue to bring awareness to the injustice of our justice system, not to fight the system, but if I could even work with the system and allow myself to get within that, so that we can realize that not only is Demone redeemed, but there's a world full of redeemed people. And all we're asking for is opportunity. And we don't want felon-friendly jobs. We're not selling for jobs that you say are only friendly to felons. We want corporate. We want to be able to put a suit and tie on. Matter of fact, I found out recently, and this is my walking shot, I found out recently that I could actually, if I had the qualifications, even with the felony, that I could actually be the president of the United States of America.
Wonder how you figured that
out. One way, somehow. And I'm not mad about it. That's what gives me hope, because we can do better.
That's right. That's right.
Gives me great hope. So look, I am so grateful for you. Grateful for you allowing me on your platform, and just every nugget, every conversation, every encouraging word. And I just look forward to continue to work with you and see how far we can truly take this so that we can ban this box.
Absolutely. All right. So everybody out there, you got homework. Okay. Number one, you got to buy the book. You have to buy the book. Okay. It is called Debt Paid But Unforgiven. And it is available everywhere. There's nowhere you can go. You're not going to find this book. So you need to get the book. If you go on Amazon, you can get it like tomorrow, probably, or the day after tomorrow. That's how fast they're printing them and getting them out. So Debt Paid But Unforgiven, the lifetime debt of a felony conviction. It is an Amazon new release bestseller. So you know it's a quality book, and I'm promising you, you're going to love reading this book. It's not just all like facts. This is a story. This is a memoir. You are going to dive deep into Demone's life and his history, his family. You're going to get to see a little bit about his mom and, all the things that he experienced, childhood days, high school days. It's all in there, right? And straight through the convictions and then out. So I definitely want you to get the book. That's number one. Number two, connect with him on social media. It's really important that you are like in the community, especially if you've had a felony conviction or you're supporting people who have. So you can catch him on TikTok or you can catch him on Instagram. And then the third thing I'm going to ask you to do is tell somebody about this book. Every one of us knows someone who needs to read this book. So tell somebody. I would say share it with your young people, your teenagers who have never gotten in trouble with the law, or maybe they skirted by some trouble with the law. If we can get our kids to see who they are before they ever have a felony conviction, how amazing would that be? So right? So let's get this in the hands of our teens. We're doing a whole project getting this book out to high schools over the course of my assistant just emailed me when I got back from vacation, Demone, to tell me that she's got the entire list ready, all the principals of all the high schools from coast to coast. So we're hitting them hard because this is a message kids need to learn early. They need to learn early so that they never have to have a felony conviction. So that's your homework, guys out there. Let's jump on this and support something that I think is it's almost a prime directive for us to make sure that we correct issues in our society when we see injustice. So, Demone, first of all, congratulations on all your success. You have been a joy to work with, such a pleasure. You did an amazing job with this book, and I hope you sell 10 million copies.
Oh, wow. Thank you. We're going to do our best effort to sell as many. And like I said, we're going to keep this topic going because it's relevant. Families and lives depend on it.
Awesome. Awesome. So listen, guys, if you've got a book that you want to get published, or if you're stuck and you're not exactly sure what to do next and you need someone to hold your hand, I think 846 Publishing is the best place for you. And I say that with no shame in my game. Like, we love what we do. We love working with clients, and we love getting books out to the world. It's not the easiest thing to do, but when you've got something like Demone's book, it's absolutely worth it. So get in touch with us. You know how to reach us. Leave us a comment. Definitely like and subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks again.